Hi, so we're going to do the number one do and number one don't about a few different topics. So today I am starting with marketing. So, and I'm not going to cheat you by like saying the number one do is follow up and the number one don't is don't follow up. I'm going to give you two separate things. So the number one do and number one don't of marketing. The number one do of marketing is to create a plan and have a system over time, right? It's foolish to think, and most people think that you're going to get a list, you're going to call that list, or you're going to market that list, and a bunch of people are going to say yes. A lot of people are going to say maybe. A lot of people are not going to answer the phone. You're going to need a system. So let's take mailing, for example. So I made this mistake, and a lot of people make this mistake, is that they buy a list and they mail to it once. That's a huge, huge waste of money. You need to, if you're going to mail a list, you need to mail it 6 or 7 times, which is why mailing is really expensive, right? If you get a list of 10,000, it's about 40 cents a postcard. It's going to cost you $4,000 each time you mail it. And you shouldn't mail it once unless you're going to mail it 6 or 7 times. So you need $25,000, $30,000 to mail a list of 10,000. So you need to plan. You need to plan your marketing, and you need to understand that there is a huge luck factor involved in marketing. So I can take the same list as you. I can get deals off that list, and you can get different deals off that list simply because the people answered the phone when you called and they didn't answer the phone, or different people answered the phone when you called, then answer the phone when I called. So the first do of marketing is you need to plan it out and think of it over time. And I've been thinking about this about life in general, that we all take a point in time in life and we go, oh, I don't have as much money, or I'm not happy about this thing. But we don't really think about life as a long-term thing. And really, the successful people think in much longer terms of time than the unsuccessful people. So marketing for real estate investment is a great example of that. And I'm having something now where I'm trying something new and it's not working and I'm sort of spending money on it, and I was about to get upset. But I realized, like, over time, this is going to work. I need to be calm about the fact that it's not working now. I'm going to tweak it. It's going to work. And over time, the fact that I screwed something up at this point in time is not going to matter. So that's another trick to be happy in life, and that's always to look further, right? If something upsets you, you think, well, is this going to really matter in 6 months? Is it going to matter in a year, in 5 years? So with marketing, you have to think long term, and you have to call people multiple times. You have to, if you're texting them, you have to text them multiple times. You have to reach out to them multiple times if you want to be successful at it. So you could take the same list as me. If I call it 10 times and you call it 3 times, I may have more success at it. So you have to think of it long term, and you need to plan on it. Whatever marketing channel you're using, you need to think of it over time. How many times are you going to hit that list? How many times, or how many different ways you're going to hit that list also through different channels? So that's the first do of marketing. And many people, including myself, screw this up all the time, right? We get a list, we mail the list once, and we say, oh, it didn't work. Or we call the list once, and no, we say it didn't work. Whatever it is, you need to think of longer term planning for marketing. You have to hit list. I'm a big believer, if you get a list, you should hit that list every way you can. You should mail it if you can afford it. You call it, text it, RVM it, which means drop a ringless voicemail in there. You should hit that list as many times, as many different ways as possible, because every person has a preferred method of communication, right? When I first started doing RVMs, or ringless voicemails, I thought they were crazy, right? Because I hated getting them. But the truth is, there are some people who don't have smartphones, who don't use the internet, and they listen to every voicemail they get. And there are a lot of other people that will never listen to their voicemail, will only listen to and will only respond to a text. And there are other people who don't like text, and they'll only they have an old flip phone, and you got to call them. So I'm a big believer, if you have a list, you need to hit that list as many different ways as possible, as many different forms of communication as possible, and as long as you can afford it. So mail, again, is expensive. If you can't afford to mail, then calling and texting are free. So that's the first do of marketing. The number one don't of marketing is to not come off, as I see a lot of other investors coming off as this super eager, we close in 15-minute buyer. So people call and say, we buy houses for cash, and we want this, we'll close right away. And for a lot of people, I got to tell you, I have probably bought more houses from people who only sold to me because I would wait for them, right? They had no place to go, and we'll get into more of that in a second. Then I bought houses from people who needed to close super fast, right? I have bought houses from people who need to close super fast. I bought something in Smithtown from a woman who was being relocated in a week, and she had a buyer that fell through. So that was an example. There are other people that are desperate, But you've got to understand New York is different than every other state in the country because the process here takes so much longer. So people are usually in New York as a seller understand that this is not going to be quick. This is not going to close in a week. It's not going to close in 4 days. Because most of those people, 99% of them, bought a house and saw how long that took, and it took months, right? And it usually takes months to close in New York. So for most people, they understand this is a long-term process. And coming at them, as I see a lot of other investors do, that I can close for cash, I can close in 24 hours, I can close in 2 days, is a stupid way to come at them. Because you don't know if the only reason why they're even thinking about selling to an investor is because they need a place to go, and they want someone who will get them into contract now so they lock in a price, and then we'll wait for them. And like I said, I've probably bought more houses from people who had that issue, right? They really didn't need to sell to an investor, but they were concerned. They probably had, most of those cases, they had a bad experience with listing a house. So maybe they listed a house and the buyer fell through after 3 months, or they listed a house and the buyers drove them crazy, or people showed up when they didn't want them to, and they wanted to sell to an investor, but their main reason was they wanted to lock in a price now, and they wanted someone who will wait for them to find some place to go. So the idea that you come at people and say, I can close really fast, I'll close right away, is foolish. First of all, and we're going to talk more about this in tomorrow's video, which is the do's and don'ts of really getting contracts and getting sellers to say yes to you. And you can't come off as desperate. You can't come off as someone who needs to close fast. You need to come off as someone who is there to help them. Right? I can close whenever you want. Right? I'll wait. I'll close fast. I'll close slow. It's up to you. It's really on your time frame. And that is a much better approach to sellers than I see a lot of people doing, which is I'll close right away and I'll close, right? So you can't come off as desperate, and we're going to talk about that more tomorrow. But you also should not come off as someone who's going to just close immediately, because a vast majority of the people don't have that issue. They have another issue. Maybe they're embarrassed of their house because it doesn't look good. Maybe they're in foreclosure, but they don't need to sell right away, because the foreclosure process in New York takes a very, very long time. Whatever their issue is, your approach is to be a problem solver. Again, we're talking about that more. So the big don't is don't come off as this desperate guy who wants to close in 5 minutes. Just come off as someone who's there to help them solve their problems. So that's the number one don't of marketing. And the number one do of marketing, just to repeat, is you need to have a plan and plan this out over a longer period of time, because anytime you're dealing with marketing, you have to understand this is something that takes a long time. Marketing is really built with momentum. The reason why you want to mail a list 6 or 7 times is because the chance of that mail piece hitting that person on the day that they just had a problem, right? They had a tenant who stopped paying the rent, or they had some huge capital improvement, like the roof is leaking and they don't want to spend it. The chance of you hitting it on that day is slim. But when you mail multiple times, the chance goes up and you stay on top of people's minds. So marketing is really a momentum-based process where you need to do it multiple times. And a lot of people go into it and they just do it once and they say, oh, it didn't work, or I didn't get a good result. And they don't understand that when you follow up with with people who have said they're sort of interested in selling, sometimes these deals become deals later, or sometimes they call you back. So think of, again, the best number one do is think of marketing as a long-term process and have a plan for it. And the number one do is don't come off as this guy who's going to, buy right away, because very often they don't want to sell right away. And you need to be someone who is there just to help them solve whatever problem they can. All right. So if you have any questions, so a couple things. If you have any suggestions for do's and don'ts on any other issues, please comment below. Also, if you see in the notes, I have a course available if you want to learn how to flip houses in New York, specific to New York. I don't think there's any other person in the world who teaches how to do it in New York, which is crazy as I say it, but that's the truth. And there's a bunch of other ways I can help you if you need lists, if you need callers. So look at the notes to see about the other ways I can help you. And if you like these, please click like, share. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. But all comments get responded to pretty quickly. So feel free to give me suggestions for any other do's and don'ts or other videos you like.